Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how to kickstart your own business in RTO and Crikos. Thank you very much for attending today's session. In the session today, we will be reviewing some of the typical questions that we get asked about RTO and Crikos registration. So we'll be going through a series of those questions throughout the webinar, but during the webinar, you can also ask any questions that you would like in the attendee chat section on the left-hand side of your screen. So by all means, pop any questions that you may have and I will answer them as I move through the webinar, going through those typical questions. Here we go. So let's get started and welcome. So a little bit about me. I commenced in the training industry in 2003 as a trainer assessor. I've also owned and operated two of my own RTOs. One, we had over 35 qualifications on the scope of registration, and we operated across two sites in New South Wales on the Central Coast and Newcastle regions, where we had 15 training rooms across those two sites, and then we delivered a range of qualifications and training across those sites. Since I sold the RTO back in 2009, I have been coaching and consulting to the training industry since 2009. And then in 2011, we set up an office and we now have a team of experts that work with us. So we have 7 of us in the office and we have contractors who also work with us as well. So we've worked on a range of clients from initial registration to re-registration to assisting with additions of scope. And we also have a membership program where we assist our clients through managing their ongoing compliance. So we've helped over 200 clients around Australia in both RTO and the Crikos sector. So with regards to an RTO, so it might be you're looking at an RTO registration. This is where you can deliver nationally recognised training around Australia and issue certificates that have procedures across where you can recognise, which are recognised across around the world. You will have the ability to apply for government funding, and it may be that you're looking at meeting some industry requirements. So it might be that you're currently delivering training and assessment under the scope of registration of another training organisation, so what's called a partnership arrangement. Or it could be that you are currently delivering training on your site, for example, with traineeships, and it might be that you have a partnership with a training organisation where they issue the certificates, or they might be delivering training on your site. Or it could be that you're delivering non-accredited training and now you've decided to go into accredited training. So it's a range of different reasons why people want to start up as an RTO, or you see it as an opportunity to invest into another business area. It may also be looking at Crikos registration. So Crikos registration is where you can deliver training to international students in Australia who are studying in Australia on a student visa. With RTO registration, you can also offer nationally recognised training to these international students, and the provider is responsible for monitoring student attendance and academic performance to the Department of Human Affairs, which is Border Protection. Additionally, you may want to add to your Crikos registration ELICOS training, which is English language courses that you could deliver under a Crikos registration. So they're the two main areas that we work with initial registration, so RTO registration and Crikos registration. You may also be interested in ELICOS courses, which we can assist with that under Crikos registration. And they're the questions that I'm going to be answering today, is under those two scenarios. So who is the regulatory body that we're dealing with? Well, the regulatory body for registration as an RTO or Crikos provider is the Australian Skills Quality Authority, also known as ASQA. They have strict requirements for submitting your application to the government, and they have requirements around initial registration, or the documentation you need to submit with your initial registration, but also your ongoing compliance requirements. We've been assisting training organisations around Australia with their initial registration compliance, but also their ongoing commitments to compliance and what they need to submit to ASQA as their reporting requirements, and also ongoing compliance requirements. ASQA will provide you with an authorised auditor who is responsible for auditing your application for initial registration. To find out more about ASQA, we recommend you go to asqa.gov.au, and there's a range of information on there about initial registration. Now, it may have been you've already been on the ASQA website and you've actually found that quite confusing. That's what we do. We make that easy process through looking at what is the initial registration process, and we have a systematic approach to how we manage your initial registration application. Because we've done it many times before, we've actually got a process in place for project managing you through that process through ASQA, because it can be quite confusing when you have a look at the ASQA website. We've actually had a couple of people who've come to us and said that ASQA have advised them that it's going to take them up to 2 years to get their registration, which is not what we've experienced. The majority of the time, what we're experiencing is at the moment is around about 6 months before you go to audit from when we submit. We've had a number of clients that we submitted in June who are now in audit. So we're going to audit this week with those clients that we submitted. So that gives you a bit of a gauge, but I'll be going through that a bit more. So back in May, ASQA announced that they will be increasing scrutiny on new applications for registration from the 1st of July 2018. So I'll be going through what will be some of the things that will affect your application if you are looking at initial registration for either RTO or CRICOS registration, and what are those changes going to mean to your application process. So there is a whole heap of changes around the submission process compared to what they did before. And those submission processes include now a self-assessment that you must conduct of your RTO, which is what we used to do as part of your mock audit requirements, where we would come out to your site and we'd actually conduct an audit of your site as well as your materials that you're going to submit to ASQA. So we'll go through all of that documentation with you. But part of your process, if you were to do this on your own, is you need to conduct like an audit, which is a self-assessment of your preparedness for submission, and that you have all of the required documentation that you're going to submit to ASQA. Other changes that have come up is fit and proper person requirements. You now need to have everyone who is listed on your ASIC historical statement, anybody who's listed as a CEO, which is a Chief Executive Officer, or PEO, which is a Principal Executive Officer for CRICOS registration, anybody who's a CFO, an RTO manager, a CRICOS manager, or a compliance manager, they are required to complete a fit and proper person form. On that fit and proper person form, you need to declare, have you ever worked with an RTO before? Have you ever worked with a CRICOS provider before? Have you ever been listed as a significant senior officer within an RTO or CRICOS organisation? What was your role there, and what were you responsible for? But also, have you ever had any family members who are registered as an RTO or CRICOS provider? And also, were they? Do you have any family members who hold significant positions within a senior management role of an RTO or CRICOS organisation? The reason why they've changed this requirement is there's been a lot of operators who have set up as an RTO, closed that down, or CRICOS provider closed that down, and then opened up a new RTO or CRICOS organisation under another family member's name because they don't want to have their name tracked through to the new registration process. Well, what they're going to do now is they're going to connect all those organisations together to ensure that you've maintained compliance. So it doesn't matter whether you actually have any family members or that have been connected to an RTO or CRICOS registration. They just want to connect those people, significant people, together so that they can ensure that you are maintaining everything above board and that you are maintaining your compliance. So there's nothing that's going to stop you if you do have a family member or any significant people within your life who have owned or operated an RTO or CRICOS organisation in the past. And that includes yourself as well. Like, I've opened and closed a number of RTOs myself, or sold them. So that's not a problem. They just want to connect you with those other organisations to ensure that everything's above board and that you are maintaining your compliance through those other organisations. So that's a major change that's happened with regards to fit and proper person requirements. There's also been major changes with financial viability requirements, where you need to complete a financial viability risk assessment kit. They've changed the whole process for that. So that has been a requirement for 3 or 4 years now, but now they've changed it where you're required to complete more documentation, and you've got to do monthly forecasting of your projected profit and loss. And you also need to provide a strategic business plan to demonstrate that you have the capacity to deliver quality education across the next 2 years. So they want to see a strategic business plan, they want to see projections, and they want to see that you've completed a financial viability risk assessment kit that meets the requirements of ASQA. So this increased scrutiny. They've also identified that there are a number of consultants out there who are setting up multiple RTOs or CRICOS providers, and they're selling those organisations. So it's for the purpose of selling only, and they actually haven't trained the new owners on how to manage their compliance requirements, or what is required to run an RTO or CRICOS organisation. So they're really undertaking increased scrutiny of these multiple owners to actually identify, well, are you setting up RTOs, CRICOS organisations for the purpose of selling those organisations? So you'll actually see what we call clean skin RTOs and CRICOS providers out there that have never delivered any training and assessment because they were set up with the purpose to sell those organisations. So ASQA are undertaking increased scrutiny of those operators. So be very careful if you're looking at buying a training organisation that has been set up with the purpose for selling, because ASQA are targeting those organisations to ensure that you actually understand what you're doing. And that includes when you're buying an existing RTO or CRICOS organisation that has been operating for a number of years, because they actually want to see, as the new owner of that organisation, do you actually understand what you're doing? Do you know how to manage your ongoing compliance requirements? And do you know how to implement policies and procedures into your organisation to maintain your compliance requirements, including submitting your reports that are required? There are 3 reports that you've got to submit each year to ASQA. So they want to understand that you actually know how to submit those reports to ASQA and what are your requirements for compliance requirements. They also have a major focus on initial registrations for your genuine intent and or capacity to provide quality education. So they want to see in your strategic business plan, your projected financial projections, but also in your training and assessment strategies, your delivery and assessment plans, and your staff matrices for the trainers that you're going to be putting forward to deliver that training, that they actually you do have a genuine intent to provide quality education by having all of those facilities, equipment, and trainers and assessors in place. So to find out more about the increased scrutiny on these new applications, you can check out our blog on the Vivacity website under vivacitycoaching.com.au, new process for initial registration. You can also go to the ASQA update, which is on the ASQA website for increasing scrutiny for new application requirements. Seems to be a little bit slow today, the internet, so we're moving through the slides a little bit slow. Let's see what comes up. Oh, that seems to be a blank slide. Okay. Process for applying for registration with ASQA. So important things that you need to know. The process is quite extensive. There's a lot of requirements that you need to meet. ASQA determining your capacity to deliver quality education. So you need to ensure that you have everything ready before you submit to ASQA, because there will be no opportunities for rectification once you've submitted those documentation. That means you will not have any opportunities to rectify any documents prior to your audit. Once you've submitted all of that documentation, they are auditing you on those documentation. If there's any non-compliances, you will be non-compliant. You will be able to apply for reconsideration process, which attracts a $1,000 fee that you need to pay to ASQA for them to reconsider your application and provide further evidence that you have documentation in place in order to be compliant. So you need to make sure that everything is compliant when you submit it to ASQA. That includes your training and assessment strategies, your delivery and assessment plans, your facilities requirements so that you have sufficient facilities to be able to deliver that training. That includes the location of the training, your trainers and assessors and the staff matrices that you submit with your application to demonstrate that your trainers and assessors have sufficient skills and knowledge to deliver the training. And they also hold the relevant qualifications, so Certificate for in Training and Assessment, which is TAE 40116 that they need to hold, and that they also hold the relevant qualifications and experience for the qualification that they are going to deliver. For example, if they're going to deliver a Certificate for in Business, they hold a Certificate for in Business or higher and have relevant experience and knowledge in working within an environment where they've utilized the skills of those units and competencies within the Certificate for in Business, and that they're able to sufficiently demonstrate that they have that skills and knowledge. So there are a range of things that you need to have in place before you submit that application to ASQA. So when you apply for initial registration, you need to demonstrate that you have financial viability and that you demonstrate that through your projections of your profit and loss. You need to also complete a self-assessment of your capacity to become a registered provider. And that includes, as I stated earlier, that you're conducting an audit of your organisation prior to submitting those documents to ASQA. So for RTO registration, you need to comply and you need to be able to provide evidence of that you can demonstrate that you will comply with the components of the VET quality framework. So this includes that you have policies and procedures, forms and documentation and processes that are aligned with the standards for RTOs 2015, the Australian Qualifications Framework, so you have assessment tools in place that will meet the AQF requirements, that you meet the requirements of fit and proper person and financial viability risk assessment and the data provision regulations, which includes that you have an VETNIS compliant database in place for submitting that documentation to ASQA and submitting your reports, those 3 reports that I advised earlier. For CRICOS registration, you need to demonstrate that you are compliant and have systems and practices in place to meet the requirements of the Education Services for Overseas Students. So that's the ESOS Act. This is the legal framework for the provision of education services to overseas students and sets out the registration requirements and ongoing compliance requirements for education providers that offer courses to overseas students. So this includes compliance with the ESOS Act and the ESOS regulations, and that you also comply with the Education Services for Overseas Students and the National Code of Practice for providers of education and training for overseas students. So you have policies, procedures, forms and documentation that are compliant with all of this legislation. So that means you need to ensure that you have those policies and procedures in place. And if you're doing both RTO and CRICOS, you need to have policies and procedures in place for your RTO registration and for your CRICOS registration. When you're submitting your application to ASQA, there are a number of forms and documentation that need to be submitted with that application. So that includes a fit and proper person form that needs to be signed by everybody listed on your ASIC historical statement. So that includes your CEO as well, even if they're not listed on your ASIC historical statement. So ASIC historical statement, CEO, CFO, RTO manager, compliance manager, and it could also be your principal executive officer, academic managers, that are all required to demonstrate that they are fit and proper persons to have senior management roles within an RTO or CRICOS organisation. You need to also complete a financial viability kit, which is to demonstrate that you have the capacity to deliver quality education and training, and that you have sufficient resources in place. So that includes financial resources to maintain your registration, and this includes getting your RTO registration and CRICOS registration set up within the first 2 years. You need to have a CEO stat deck that is signed, that whoever's going to be responsible as the chief executive officer, that you'll maintain your compliance. You'll also need to have a completed self-assessment tool that demonstrates your preparedness for registration, which is very similar to conducting an internal audit. This is also submitting all of the required documentation to demonstrate that you are able to run an RTO. This includes your training and assessment strategies, your delivery and assessment plans, your staff matrices, and all of your documentation to demonstrate that you will be compliant. And that includes facilities and equipment, training timetables you'll also need to submit. So there's a range of documentation that you need to submit with your completed self-assessment. So these include strategic business plan, projected profit and loss, training and assessment strategies, training and assessment tools for every single unit of competencies for each qualification that you wish to add onto your scope of registration, staff matrices for all of your trainers and assessors for each qualification that you are adding to your scope of registration, policies and procedures that are complying with or the national code if you're doing CRICOS, and these standards for RTOs if you're doing RTO registration and or both, and all of your marketing material that you'll be providing. So that includes websites, your course flyers, your materials that you're going to be providing prior to course commencement, so student handbook, and if you're doing CRICOS, ASQA will also be requiring you to submit a international student prospectus, websites, of course, letters of offer, and all of that documentation that you'll be providing to your international students in order for them to determine whether you're a suitable provider. So additional requirements for CRICOS is a 9B building approval. So you've been approved to deliver training and assessment in your building, and that your building has the capacity to meet educational purposes. You'll need to provide a building floor plan, CRICOS timetable, international student prospectus, your letter of offer. You have a student support officer and services in place to support those students whilst they're studying at your organisation. And also, if you're applying for ELICOS, that you have an academic manager in place who will look after those students once that they've come on board within your organisation, so that you have academic manager who assists those students with their English language courses. So you may be thinking, well, should I become an RTO or expand into CRICOS? And what do I need to have in place in order to do that? So this will depend on your current circumstances. Do you have facilities in place? Will you be able to have sufficient facilities in place that is fit for education purposes? Do you have all of the equipment required in place? Do you have trainers and assessors prior to submission? So you need to ensure that you have all of this in place before you submit your application to ASQA. That's where we can assist you with that process, because we help organisations all the time with initial registration and ensuring that they will be compliant with all of the sufficient documentation for submission. So are you in business now? You don't need to have a company already registered if you're working with us, but when you submit to ASQA, you will need to have a company registered, and you'll need to have all of that documentation to submit with it. It might be that you're currently delivering non-accredited training now, and you're thinking about getting into accredited training and delivering nationally recognised qualifications and training and assessment. It could be that you are working on a partnership with another RTO, and now you're thinking about delivering nationally recognised training under your own registration. We often get asked, do I need to have a training background in order to set up an RTO or CRICOS organisation? No, you don't need to be personally, as the directors of the organisation, have a training background. However, you need to ensure that you have trainers and assessors in place who hold the necessary qualifications, but also have industry experience in training and assessment and delivery of training, and also that they have sufficient skills and knowledge in order to deliver that training against the industry background that they are going to deliver. So yes, they need to have experience, but they also need to hold a certificate for in training and assessment. It also helps if you've got someone working with you with your application process who has an understanding of training and assessment and the compliance requirements, because it's going to make your whole process easier when you submit, because it's so many things that you need to comply with when you submit your application. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to make the whole process so much harder. So it might be that you are also an industry body and that now you want to deliver nationally recognised qualifications to your staff and employees. For example, it might be that you want to become an enterprise training organisation where you're delivering nationally recognised qualifications and assessments to your staff within your organisation. So that may be another reason why you want to become an RTO. It might be that you currently have access to an international market. We get a lot of people who are education agents or migration agents who then want to become CRICOS providers because they can see the opportunity to be able to deliver nationally recognised qualifications and training to people who are seeking student visas to come into Australia. We often get asked, should I buy an RTO CRICOS organisation or should I set up my own? So there are a number of risks around setting up your own or buying your own organisation, and in particular looking at organisations, as I stated earlier, where ASQA are undertaking increased scrutiny with organisations that have been set up with the purpose to sell. So what I stated earlier, for example, a clean skin RTO. So it can be quicker to buy an organisation, but what we're experiencing, it actually can take much longer, because if there's issues with buying that organisation, for example, from the person that you're buying from, they can slow down the whole process. We've seen people who have looked at buying an RTO and it's taken them 12 to 24 months before they actually finalise the sale of buying that RTO. Now, the other thing that you need to consider is when you buy an RTO, you buy all of their non-compliances. So if they've ever had any non-compliances in the past, you buy those as well. Also, if they've had any non-compliances that haven't been identified yet, when you go to audit, you will be responsible for any of those non-compliances, and that includes if they've had a government funding contract and they've claimed money that they shouldn't have, you are responsible for refunding the government if they've claimed money that they shouldn't have claimed. So that means students that they've claimed for that they actually didn't deliver any training and assessment. So it's really, really important that you undertake due diligence of those RTOs or CRICOS organisations that you're looking at purchasing to ensure that they're not dodgy operators and that they haven't claimed money that they shouldn't have and that they do not have any non-compliances, because you're buying all of those skeletons in the closet that you don't know about because you haven't undertaken due diligence of that organisation. So it's a high risk purchase if you're purchasing an organisation that has undertaken government funding and may have had non-compliances before at audit. The new CEO will be audited anyway, and so will the new directors of that organisation. So you're still going to go to audit. You're not going to avoid an audit. They will audit you anyway. It is, however, a good option if there's goodwill and there's lots of students there that you're purchasing as well, and that you have facilities and equipment in place, and that you may have be looking at buying an RTO where you already have a team there, and that you'll continue using that team as part of your new RTO operations. But it's very hard to find an RTO or Cricos organisation that actually delivers qualifications that you wish to deliver. So it might be that you need to do an addition to scope for the qualifications that you wish to deliver. So you really need to look into the organisation that you're looking at purchasing and make sure that it's ideal, that it actually meets the requirements and the training and assessment background that you have and experience that you have in those industry areas, because it's going to make it very difficult if you take on an RTO Cricos organisation where you don't actually understand those qualifications that they have on that scope of registration. Okay, so if you're buying an RTO, you really need to consider those risks and undertake due diligence of that organisation and conduct that due diligence of that organisation prior to purchasing. When you register your own RTO, it can take a bit longer because you've got to go through the registration process, but it's a lower risk of non-compliances because you know what's happened with that organisation, you know what's in place, and you've put the qualifications on your scope that you want to have on your scope of registration. There is a lot more work up front prior to your registration, but with that work, you're going to learn a lot about running an RTO and what are all the compliance requirements. You need to know what you are doing or hire an expert to ensure that you are compliant, such as a consulting organisation like Vivacity, to ensure that you're going to meet the compliance requirements. You get to choose your own qualifications and assessment tools, so that's the bonus of registering your own RTO. So when you set up, you need to begin with the end in mind. You may already have a company in place or set up, and you may want to set up a new entity. RTOs can be registered under a range of structures, for example, a proprietary limited, sole trader, trust, public or privately listed. From our experience, the best structure for a future sale of an RTO is a proprietary limited structure. So this is an example of the ideal structure that we recommend for setting up your RTO. In order to sell your asset in the future as an RTO, the best way to set up your RTO is as a proprietary limited company. So it might be that you have a number of other companies that you are operating at the moment. We recommend that you set up them under a trust structure. So you can set up the RTO as a separate entity and then bring that under your trust at a later date. So you can do that. It might be that you are looking at operating an enterprise RTO. I wouldn't do this structure. If you're looking at enterprise, it should be under the current structure of your current company. The main reason why I recommend this is if you have a consulting company, for example, or another part of your organization that you would not want to separate later, you should set them up as separate entities. But this is the best structure. Who should you have in your RTO? We have helped many clients who are me, myself, and I RTOs. So you don't need to have a whole organization set up. You can set up as one person, although it is much harder to do that. But you can be. We've had clients who've set up as they're the CEO. They're also the trainer assessor. They're also the chief financial officer, so they're responsible for all the finances. They're also the marketing person, so they're doing everything. We don't recommend that long term because you're not going to grow as an RTO if you are a me, myself, and I RTO. You need to actually have a team to work with you in order to ensure that you're going to maintain your compliance, but also get students in your organisation. Because if you haven't got someone who's there taking the phone calls, and doing the marketing of the organisation, you're not going to be able to grow because you're going to be in the training room when you're getting phone calls for people who are looking at registering for enrolment into your courses. As a Cricos provider, you definitely cannot be a me, myself, and I RTO or Cricos provider because there's a lot more requirements. You need to have a student support officer. You need to have an academic manager if you're going to have ELICOS, but it's very important that you have support services in place and that staff who are going to be able to assist your students who are coming into Australia because there's a lot more requirements around looking after those students, international students, when they come into Australia. You don't need to have a team to set up an RTO, but we highly recommend that you have experts on your side with a range of experience to help you through the registration process. You'll definitely need to have trainers and assessors in place who hold the minimum of certificate for in training and assessment, and they hold a minimum of the qualification that you wish to deliver on your scope of registration, but they also have relevant industry experience with a minimum of 3 years industry experience within the last 3 years, who are able to demonstrate that they are fit and proper people to be able to deliver that training and assessment. So how long does it take to get your registration? So according to ASQA, it can be anywhere between 12 to 18 months. We have heard recently that ASQA told them 2 years. That's not from our experience. Our process for RTO is to submit within 3 to 4 months, and ASQA can take 3 to 4 months before they get you to audit. So that example I gave you earlier, we submitted clients in June who are going to audit this month. So it's been 4 months since we submitted them to getting their registration. Audit, going to audit. So that is the process from submission to getting to audit, and then following audit, if there's any rectifications or reconsideration that you need to submit following. Our process for CRICOS is to submit within 4 to 5 months. It takes a bit longer because you need to have a timetable in place. You need to have a building in place that meets the education purposes requirements, and it has that 9B tick of approval from your local council. To find out more about 9B approval, you need to go to your local council to find out what those education premises requirements are, and it's a building certification for 9B on that building. So you need to have a look at the building approval and that they have 9B, so it means it's fit for education purposes. So the time frame to submit will be dependent on your current workload and other commitments that you have in order to get that application submitted, and whether you need to write all of your policies and procedures and documentation and training and assessment strategies and delivery and assessment plans and staff matrices and getting all of that documentation together, then conducting a self-assessment and then getting it submitted. So there's quite a process involved with submitting your application to ASQA. What we find, though, is our process is much quicker because we're very systematic with what we do, and we have a project management system for managing your registration process. So it's a lot quicker than if you were to do it on your own. So do you need an expert? You will need to have a good understanding of your organisation and the training industry before going to audit. You need to have sufficient policies, procedures and documentation that support all the government requirements, and it's even better if all of those documentation have been to audit before. We recommend that you hire a qualified and experienced trainer or assessor who has a minimum of 3 years industry experience in their industry sector. The CEO and directors do not need to have any experience in the training industry, but if you're applying for CRICOS, you will need to have a PEO who has a minimum of 5 years work experience in Australia. And you need to demonstrate that through a resume and other evidence. The estimated startup fees that you will need in order to submit your application and then your ongoing compliance. Your ASQA fees alone for an RTO is $8,800. CRICOS is $9,900. So if you're doing both RTO and CRICOS, that will be combined. Registration and setup, you're looking at between 30 to 40 grand for an RTO and 45 to 55 grand for CRICOS registration. Training and assessment tools, you're looking at around $1,000 to $15,000 per qualification that you wish to add onto your scope of registration. And you need to have a database in place that has that is VETMIS compliant and has all the reporting requirements in order to submit those reports to ASQA. So that can be anywhere between $1,500 to $20,000, depending on whether you need online training facilities as well. Training rooms and buildings can be anywhere between $4,000 to $8,000 a month. And if you're looking at CRICOS that has 9B approval, and depending on where you want to have that organisation, that can be anywhere between $5,000 to $35,000 a month for your rent. Staff that you need to have in place, you'll need to have around $700 to $4,000 a week for RTO, and Cricos because you need to have an academic manager and those support services in place. You're looking at between $1,000 to $10,000 a week in wages. So as a minimum for an RTO, you're looking at a minimum of $75,000 investment in order to set up as an RTO, and Cricos registration, you need a minimum of $100,000 to gain your Cricos registration. So where we find others fail is they have a limited understanding of what is expected for your ASQA audit, and that includes your desk audit as well as your site audit, and they really don't understand what the requirements for registration process is. They have insufficient training and assessment strategies that do not demonstrate that they have the capacity to deliver quality education, and they have all of the facilities and equipment in place in order to deliver that training. They don't have delivery and assessment plans that demonstrate that they have the capacity to deliver that training, and that includes a timetable of how they're going to deliver that training, and there's got to be a very detailed timetable that they can provide their trainers and assessors, as well as provide that to their students so that they understand what the process is for the delivery and assessment. They don't have trainers and assessors who have sufficient skills and knowledge and or qualifications in order to deliver that training and assessment. Assessment tools do not meet the training package requirements, and they don't meet the requirements of the unit of competencies in the assessment conditions, and they haven't actually validated their assessment tools to ensure that they meet the requirements. They do not have the capacity to deliver what they included in their financial viability risk assessment or their strategic business plan. So they actually have said one thing, but they don't actually have the capacity to deliver that because it's not consistent with their delivery and assessment plan and their training and assessment strategy. They don't have sufficient policies and procedures in place to demonstrate that they will manage the ongoing compliance requirements or the supporting documents to support those policies and procedures. And very importantly is they don't have the facilities to meet the training product requirements to be able to deliver that training. So risks of setting up your RTO without expertise is you could lose valuable money. And the time and the process it takes for that registration process is you lose a lot of money. What we've found is people have come to us who have used other consultants who actually don't know what they're doing. They've wasted a whole heap of time and money with those other consultants because they don't understand the registration process and they really don't understand training and assessment. Like my background and my team, our background comes from training and assessing, but also auditing requirements and writing policies and procedures. So we have a good understanding of that, and we're going to provide you with the right advice. And with all of our clients, everybody who follows our advice and does what we tell them to do, they get through the registration process. Also, what we find is people are missing the crucial documents that are required for the audit process because they didn't submit it with their self-assessment documentation, and they don't even get to the site audit stage because they haven't actually provided sufficient documentation at the self-assessment stage, and they lose all of that money. Once you've submitted all of that documentation and paid your $8,800 or $9,900 to ASQA, you don't get that back if your application is rejected. They're not being properly prepared for the audit process. They waste a whole heap of time. They go through a lot of stress financially and emotionally because they do not understand what the requirements are, and they haven't actually worked with someone who actually understands what they should be doing. And they get very overwhelmed with the ASQA requirements. We don't get overwhelmed because we know the process. We've been doing it for many years. Vivacity's been running now for over 9 years, since before ASQA came in to play. Before that was state regulatory bodies that we have been working with. I have war wounds from the amount of audits that I've been to. We've been to over 200 ASQA audits since ASQA's inception. So we have lots of experience of working with clients and going through that registration process. They go through the whole process of initial registration and then end up with a sanction imposed by ASQA whereby they can't deliver certain qualifications, and they're not allowed to add qualifications to their scope of registration following registration because they had insufficient documentation, didn't provide sufficient evidence to ASQA that they have the capacity to be able to deliver compliant quality education. So what if you are non-compliant? ASQA provides you with an ASQA audit report following the audit. They no longer have a rectification process. It's a reconsideration process, so whereby you've got to pay $1,000 to the government for them to reconsider your application, and where you can submit further evidence. If a minor risk is identified, they'll get you through the registration process, but you will be re-audited within 2 years, and you'll need to demonstrate that you're compliant in that 2 years. If you have any non-compliances with trainers, assessors, assessment tools, facilities and equipment, and anything to do with your training and assessment strategies, that's deemed a critical non-compliance, and you'll go to reconsideration process. If a critical risk, your application will be rejected and you will be given the opportunity for reconsideration. Okay, do you have any questions? I haven't had any questions so far, so if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box and I will answer those questions for you right now. Otherwise, I'm going to launch into what can we do to help you through our Kickstart package with RTO and Crycos registration. So introducing the Kickstart package. We get it right the first time with Vivacity. Hi, I've got a hi. Hello. Hi. So we get it right the first time. And the reason why is because we've got lots of experience with the registration process. So we know what we're doing. We've been doing it well for a very long time. So what do we do different from the other consultants that are out there? We coach, not just consult. We teach you how to run a compliant organization. I deliver monthly webinars on how to implement the policies and procedures into your organization. You get with your Kickstart package a year's membership with Vivacity, where we teach you how to implement those policies and procedures into your organization. So we have a monthly RTO compliance webinar and we have a monthly Crycos webinar where we teach you how to implement those policies and procedures into your organization. We also coach you through the process because you get a dedicated client liaison officer who works with you and coaches you through the whole process. So by the time you get to registration, you actually have a much better understanding of how to manage your compliance on an ongoing basis. We teach you how to run a successful business, from monthly webinars to face-to-face training. We have over 30 years of experience in the training industry with extensive experience in writing policies, procedures and the supporting documentation for your RTO and Crycos organisation. We have a systematic approach for setting up your organisation and business, managing your ongoing compliance. We've got a question. Is a business loan a feasible option to satisfy financial viability? Yes, you'll be able to utilize a business loan to demonstrate that you have financial capacity to be able to deliver that training and assessment, and you need to include that in your projected profit and loss that you have that business loan. So yes, you can. It's not the only thing. There's other things that you need to do as well, but that's part of it. So working with our clients, we provide you with training and expert support on how to maintain your ongoing compliance requirements and preparedness for your audit. We give you weekly calls from a dedicated client liaison officer who will look after you throughout the whole process. There are monthly webinars on how to implement the policies and procedures and maintain your ongoing compliance, which is part of our membership package. We prepare you for your ASCA audit with a focus on managing your risk of the new business. We have an online system for you to access all of your branded documentation and policies and procedures so that you can access those at any time. And we also have a membership platform that we're launching next year where you'll be able to access this membership forum where we'll be delivering online training, and it will be a portal for you to be able to access our team as well. I have another question. Do we have to hold a rental premises from the start of registration process until an RTO is registered and we commence business? You'll need to demonstrate that you have the facilities and equipment in place in order to deliver that training and assessment. It will depend on the qualifications that you add onto your scope of registration, what those facilities need to be. If you are looking at high-risk qualifications such as childcare or aged care, you need to ensure that you have facilities and equipment in place to be able to deliver that training. So that includes that you have all of the equipment to deliver childcare training or the equipment in place to deliver aged care training. You also need to have access to work placement facilities for your students to undertake their work placement requirements and meet the workplace requirements. So rental premises is dependent on the qualifications that you wish to have on your scope of registration. If you were to deliver first aid units, for example, you could hire facilities for the delivery of that training, and you'll need to have a room hire agreement that meets education purposes. So it actually has on the room hire agreement that it's fit for education purposes for the delivery of that training, but you'll need to have a signed room hire agreement in place. So yes, you will need to demonstrate that you have the facilities and equipment to deliver the training from the initial registration process, but dependent on the qualifications that you're going to add onto your scope of registration, that will decide whether you need to have a rental agreement in place for your registration process. For CRICOS registration, you must have a rental agreement in place prior to submission, and you must be able to provide a copy of that rental agreement for CRICOS registration, and you must be able to provide also a floor plan of those facilities. So what if we have facilities for aged care training in place and the registration is declined? You'll need to have, if you have facilities in place to be able to deliver your aged care training, you shouldn't get your registration declined. So I'm not sure where that question is coming from. You need to demonstrate that if you're delivering aged care training, that you have sufficient equipment. So things like walkers, walking frames, bed lifters, chair lifters, all of that equipment that's listed in order for you deliver that training in aged care, as in it would be required in an aged care facility. So I'll give you an example. We've got a client who delivers aged care training who has a facility in place where she has training rooms, but she also has a big room that is set up like an aged care facility. So it has rooms for that aged care training, and it has the beds, and it has lifters, and it has wheelchairs and walking frames and all of that equipment in place in order for them to deliver that training in aged care. It's one of the highest risk qualifications that you can put on your scope of registration. Childcare and aged care are the two highest risks because there's a whole heap of equipment that's required as part of the registration process. And that's a lot of what we help you with, is to identify that we actually audit your premises to make sure that it's actually going to meet the requirements for the training product that you wish to add onto your scope of registration. So about our team, we have over 30 years of experience in the training industry and have attended over 200 ASCA audits. We have experienced auditors in both RTO and CRICOS compliance who work with you throughout the process. We've been writing policies and procedures for over 20 years with experience as trainers and assessors as well. We have hands-on RTO CRICOS experience, and our team are trained by experienced auditors. Our Kickstart package requires no experience in the training industry because we teach you how to do it. What you will get a systematic approach to gaining your registration, a user guide, which is policies and procedures, forms and documentation on how to run your RTO CRICOS business. We are an industry recognised leader in consultation in both RTO and CRICOS sector. We have expertise in the industry to get you through the process much quicker. I've worked in RTOs personally, as well as owned and operated 2 of my own RTOs. We also have another auditor here who's also worked in a number of RTOs. All of our client liaison officers must have a minimum of 5 years experience of working in an RTO in order for them to be a client liaison officer. So we have extensive experience in the training industry. We can get you started straight away, so there's no need to wait. We set you realistic goals and we'll be honest with you about the process. We will not lie to you in order to gain you as a client. We'll be realistic, we'll be straightforward, and we'll tell you how it is. We will not lie to you just to get you as a client, because we need you to know that the process is very extensive and there are a lot of requirements that you need to meet And that doesn't matter who you hire to help you. The process is still the same with ASQA, and you're still going to be required to do a lot of work in order to gain your registration. So we'll get you started with our dream team. You'll have experienced experts on your side who are connected with the industry. You'll be supported with training as well. So these are with webinars and live face-to-face workshops that we deliver in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Adelaide. I'm off to Adelaide this week to deliver training on Thursday, Friday in Adelaide on RTO compliance and assessment validation. Next month, we will be in Sydney on the 5th, 6th and 7th of December, delivering CRICOS RTO compliance workshops as well as assessment validation workshops. We have systems and practices that have been through many ASQA audits before. We have hands-on experience in ASQA audits as well as running training organizations. You'll get a whole team on your side helping you through the process. It won't be just one consultant who may be at audit at the time you tried to give them a call, or they may be with a client. You'll have a whole team of experts who will be working with you to gain your registration process. We're building your dream. We are not building you a business for now. We are building you an investment for the future. We have the experience, expertise, and the tools to help you to achieve your goals now. We have connections with the training industry. You may be close right now. We can get you over the line and get your registration. So what is in the Kickstart package? You'll get a dedicated client liaison officer who assists you with preparing the required documentation. We'll answer your compliance questions, assist you with preparing your financial viability documents. We'll deal with ASQA on your behalf. We'll complete your online application with ASQA, and we'll provide you with the supporting documentation during the whole process. We'll keep you on track to get your registration sooner. We'll liaise with our team to answer all of your questions. The Kickstart package for RTO and CRICOS includes business planning, including financial viability, and we have a certified practicing accountant who works with us to assist you with the financial viability requirements. Depending on the level of Kickstart package that you go with us, will depend on how much support you'll get through this process. So our standard package is you'll get our accountant who will assist you by reviewing all of your documentation for submission to ASQA for financial viability. For if you are looking at a higher level of support, you can also get more support where they'll provide you with a half-day consultation for financial viability or up to a whole day's consultation for financial viability. So a gold Kickstart package is a basic package. Then we go to Ruby, where you'll get additional, you get the half day with the accountant, and you'll also get 2 days of us coming to your premises, and we'll actually conduct some work at your premises and do one-on-one consulting. To our Diamond package, where we give you additional support and ongoing face-to-face support. We'll write your training and assessment strategies in accordance with the training package requirements, and we'll consult with you and engage with you to teach you how to write the training and assessment strategy. So we'll draft it for you, and then we'll get you working with us in order to undertake industry consultation so that we've got the training and assessment strategy to be delivered the way you want it to be delivered. I've got a question. Have you submitted any new registration applications under the new requirements? Yes, we have. We're currently working on, I think, 10 submissions at the moment, and we submitted 9 in June, and we've submitted 1 application since the new requirements have come in. All of the clients that we submitted prior to 1 July, we're already going through the audit process, which is under the new requirements. So just because it was submitted prior to 1 July doesn't mean they've escaped the new audit process. We are dealing with it right now. We are helping our clients with the whole audit process right now. And we've also started conducting the self-assessments, which is the requirement that needs to be submitted. How long has the financial viability and fit and proper person review taken, and then the date of the audit allocated. So it's not only financial viability and fit and proper person, it's your business planning. So you need to write a strategic business plan. You need to have your training and assessment strategies in place, your delivery and assessment plans, your staff matrix, all of your resources in place, and you need to have conducted a self-assessment, which we do a mock audit at your premises prior to submission. So our process is anywhere between 3 to 4 months for us to do all of that with you and then submit to ASQA. And then it's going to take about 3 to 6 months before you go to ASQA audit following that submission. So there's quite a bit of a process with submission with all of that documentation. So we include the financial viability risk assessment, which we work with a certified practicing accountant who has extensive experience in the training industry. We've actually partnered with him and his organisation in order to assist you throughout the financial viability requirements. One of the first webinars you'll get as part of the process for the Kickstart package is a webinar we've recorded on writing a strategic business plan and meeting the financial viability requirements, which was delivered in conjunction with our accountant. So he works with us on an ongoing basis to assist you throughout that process. It's very much we work with him to assist you. We also do the ASQAnet submission to ASQA for your application, and we do the self-assessment that we conduct at your premises, and we also assist you throughout the ASQA audit process. So Kickstart Plus membership. So with your Kickstart package, you'll get included with it a year's membership. So it includes all of the policies, procedures and documentation, monthly webinars, 2 to 3 live workshops, depending on whether you're doing RTO or Cricos, and we'll also do a systems check at your premises. With Ruby, you get all of the above, plus 2 additional days for assessment validation and 2 times face-to-face consultations at your premises, and you'll also get a half day with our accountant. With Diamond, you get all of the above, plus you get 10 additional, so 12 days all up, face-to-face consultation at your premises. And you also get a whole day or 2 half days with our accountant to assist you with writing your financial viability, forecasted, projected profit and loss. In the business planning and financial viability stage, we provide you with a strategic business plan template and training on how to meet all the strategic business plan requirements and what needs to be in your strategic business plan, including what needs to be in your financial viability. So we provide you with a template that's already been written, but also with guidance on what needs to go onto that documentation. We also provide you with assistance with the projected profit and loss and spreadsheets in order to do that. You'll also get a meeting with our RTO Cricos specialist accountant. You'll get preparation of your application to be submitted to ASQA, training and support on how to write your strategic business plan. And for Ruby and Diamond clients, you get access to additional consultation days for the writing of your business plan if you need any further assistance with that. With your training and assessment strategy, we'll identify the best training products to put onto your scope of registration whilst maintaining the risk level of your initial registration. We'll identify your training needs, and that includes what assessment tools and resources you need to purchase in order to be compliant for your initial registration process. We'll also guide you on industry consultation and what you need to have in place. So that includes conducting industry surveys and provide you with the survey templates to do that. We'll also guide you through the resources and the equipment required and referral to suitable suppliers that we know will get through audit. We'll draft your staff matrix and then guide you and train you on how to complete that staff matrix with your trainer and assessor. We'll provide you with a template for your delivery and assessment plan and then review that plan once you've updated it with how you wish to deliver your training and assessment. We'll provide you with an assessment validation schedule, which is part of your submission requirements for your training and assessment strategy. And we'll also provide you with customized marketing material for each training product that you wish to add onto your scope of registration. You'll get included professional development for the first 12 months with your membership package. So you'll get monthly webinars as part of that first 12 months of your membership. You'll also get 2 to 3 live workshops that are delivered in capital cities in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Adelaide. We'll conduct a self-assessment, which is an internal audit of your preparedness for submission to ASQA. We'll conduct a final review of your training and assessment, including your training and assessment strategies and all of the documentation that you need to submit as part of your self-assessment. We'll also assist you with the completion and sign-off of your self-assessment for ASQA and guidance and an action plan on what may need to be rectified in order to be compliant prior to your audit and prior to submission of your self-assessment. We'll actually submit your application to ASQANet and we'll assist you with the finalisation of all the documentation to be submitted and uploaded to ASQANet. This includes your strategic business plan, your financial viability documentation, fit and proper person forms, CEO statutory declaration, your self-assessment, your training and assessment strategies and staff matrices, etc. For your ASQA audit, you'll have a Vivacity expert by your side to assist you through the ASQA audit process. Audit folder will be provided with all of your documentation prepared for your audit. We'll also take your notes at the ASQA audit and identify any opportunities for improvement during the audit. Timing allowing, we'll also fix any documentation whilst at the audit, and we'll provide you with coaching throughout the day and guidance on how to answer the ASQA auditor. These are some of the clients that we've worked with over the last 9 years. There's actually quite a few more, and you'll also see them on our website. One of our clients that we worked with this year was Wiseman & Co. They were a restaurant owner who wanted to offer commercial cookery training. We assisted them with CRICOS and VET registration. We made some adjustments for their CRICOS registration in order to meet their commercial cookery requirements. We also provided them with referrals in order to gain the best 9B conditions in order to meet their registration requirements and got them a capacity of 33 students at their site. The client was approved within a month of their ASQA audit. This is another client that we worked with who are delivering non-accredited training in project management, and we're going to lose a $2 million contract if they didn't get their registration within a 3-month period. We got them submitted to ASQA and approved within 3 months, and they met their requirements for their $2 million contract in order to deliver project management training, a diploma of. Here's a testimonial from one of our other clients, Aston College, who we got their registration back in 2015, and they're still a member. They've been working with us since their registration, or we've been working with them, I should say, to help them manage their ongoing compliance. Here is another testimonial with a client that we got their registration at the start of this year, and now they're applying for CRICOS registration. So we're doing CRICOS registration with them. So we got their RTO, and now we're doing CRICOS registration. We've also done about 6 additions to scope for them since they got registered, and they're members, and we're managing their ongoing compliance through membership. So you may be thinking, what if I'm too busy? It sounds all too hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. You may not think you have the money right now to do that. And this is something you really need to consider, because if you feel like you don't have the money right now, you're not going to meet the financial viability requirements. If you cannot pay our fees or the ASQA fees in order to do your registration, you're not ready. You don't have the finances in place. I think I can do this on my own. That's very difficult. I don't know how anybody does this on their own without the experience and expertise that we have in order to assist you through the registration process. You might want to find out a bit more information. by all means, get in contact with other consultants and find out what they've got to offer. Most of the consultants out there do not have the expertise or the experience that we do at ASQA Audit, or the team to support it, or the systems and practices in order to project manage you through this very important process. You might need some more information, so by all means go to asqa.gov.au. The way we see it, we're assisting you with a return on investment in order to get your registration. An RTO is valued at $150,000 right now without actually conducting any training and assessment. You'll have access to the ability to access government funding. I sold my RTO back in 2009 for over $500,000, just to give you an idea of how much an RTO is worth. You may be looking at getting access to an international market. As soon as you are registered as an RTO, you can start delivering training overseas. You don't need to have CRICOS registration in order to deliver training overseas. You only need to have CRICOS registration if you wish to bring international students into Australia on an international student visa and deliver training to those students. You may see this as an opportunity to expand your current business. Would you rather have a team of experts on your side with over 20 years of experience and over 200 successful ASQA audits sitting next to you at audit? If you did this on your own, you need to ensure that you have a RTO manager in place, or someone who has CRICOS or RTO experience in compliance, and you're looking at between $120,000 to $200,000 per year for a salary. It could take you up to 3 years to get registration. We have a process that will get you through much quicker. You run a risk of being non-compliant at audit and having to spend more time and money to resubmit. You could lose valuable time and money by trying to do this by yourself or hiring the wrong consultants to get you through this process. It could cause you more stress due to not knowing what you are doing or hiring the wrong person to help you. So what we do that is different: we are by your side at your ASQA audit. We include professional development through monthly webinars and 2 to 3 days face-to-face training in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and we're also now in Adelaide. We have documentation that has been through over 200 ASQA audits around Australia. We include the completion of your financial viability kit. We are clear and transparent with all of your fees up front. There will be no additional fees from Vivacity in order for you to get your registration process. We'll advise you on the best place to purchase your training and assessment tools. We'll be clear and transparent with all of those fees up front. There will be no surprises. Our team has experience with RTO and CRICOS industry, working within the industry and as auditors. We have connections with resource providers and assessment tool developers. We do not add any more fees following commencement. So if you need to know any further information, please contact Dave at vivacitycoaching.com.au. You can also check out our website. Also give us a call. The office hours are now closed, but you can give us a call at the office on 1300 729 455. Dave will be in contact with you, that he knows who's attended this webinar. Dave is our sales and marketing manager. He will be in contact with you to provide you with further information and ask if you have any further questions. You'll also be receiving some emails with some additional information about what we do and how we can assist you throughout the whole process. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it and you learn a lot about the process. If you need to know any further information, please do not hesitate to get in contact with Dave at vivacitycoaching.com.au, and also get in contact with us with regards to any further information. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I look forward to working with you real soon. Bye.